Wakanda forever. Hello, I am William Jamar Wright.
And I'm Hattie.
And this is our podcast, HattieJo. What are we doing? And this episode, we actually both recently went and saw the #1 movie in America, Black Panther. And it was actually a very entertaining movie. And so we decided to talk about it. It's been a bunch of discussions and think pieces about it. And it's been very, they say we came away very impressed. And I would say something really cool for me is living here in Durham in such a close proximity to Duke. There are, we have had people come in and give talks and kind of give their viewpoints of the movie. And it was really neat for me to kind of go in and listen to other people's thoughts and how they kind of saw the movie and kind of the lens with which they viewed Black Panther. And it's really neat because it's definitely some things that I never kind of thought twice about, but it was really good.
Yeah, and you were lucky enough to be able to attend to a lot of those things, so I'm really curious to hear your perspectives and what you heard at these panel discussions and stuff. But yeah, I think that's really interesting. It's not very often that a movie comes out, especially a #1 bestseller whose main purpose was entertainment, to then have a lot of scholarly discussion and academic spotlight on that thing. Usually if it's a documentary or it's some art thing that's detailing some historic thing. So it was really interesting to me that something that was created, at least in my opinion, with there are many goals, I think, of the
yes, there were definitely many
of
goals.
Black Panther, but I think the #1 top thing was a piece of entertainment.
Yes.
And so it's just really cool that for something that's a piece of entertainment, there's all this discussion.
Yeah. So what was your initial thought of the movie? What did you think of the movie?
So do I need to give a little summary, or is that...
No, it's been out for over a month now. Go see the movie. Yeah.
Just asking. Gee. Well, my initial thought was as a piece of entertainment, I really liked it.
Mm.
And we can get into this a little bit later. I thought there was a lot of visual imagery that was very similar to Star Wars, and so I was a little, I wouldn't say disappointed per se, because there was also a lot of visual imagery that was, I thought, very unique.
Mm.
But it's just some of those things that kept jumping out at me that I was really couldn't have thought of anything new. But I also feel like that's a very common thing in art and in storytelling anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You can take any story and there's certain elements of it and you can say, well, they got this from that and they got this from that. The amount of originality in any thing is, I think, a lot smaller if you start to look at it, if you really pick it apart. So I'm not trying to say it wasn't original or it didn't have cool special effects and stuff, but I thought there were some pieces that reminded me a lot of Star Wars.
So I definitely I think you're just talking about the visual aspects of it. Correct?
Yes. I'm not talking about the storyline, and nor am I talking about any of the other things that made me think about or anything like that. But as a cinematography, I don't know how to pronounce the word. Just as a visual experience.
Yes.
But that was not the thing that struck me most. I think what I thought about and liked about it most is that I left the movie theater thinking a lot about race and class and power and the lack of power and the interplay between those two and what are the responsibilities of the different groups.
Mm-hmm.
And what are those responsibilities in the movie, but also what are those responsibilities here in our daily life.
Yes. And I would definitely say that was a huge, I would say that's a goal of the movie. And I think that's something that, for me personally, being African American and being somebody that's had access and being able to go to a school like Duke University and being able to have networks and connect to people. That's definitely something that like I am constantly grappling with. Is like, yes, I have this platform and I have this access, but like, what is my responsibility to like those that come after me, my nephews, even the student athletes that I work with, and helping them and pushing and helping try to push and help the Black community, and help them like prosper, and let everyone have equal opportunities. And I definitely think the film as a whole tried to accomplish that and try to have some dialogue about that. And I think that's a struggle that most African Americans that have been able to get success and been able to get access to universities and things like that, like that's something that they struggle with. And I think the movie portrayed that excellently. But I also like, first of all, like I was really, really, really excited to go see the movie.
I can attest to that. He was
like
really
I was literally sitting at my office, like, all right, it's the day. Hurry up and get over with today, like so we can go see the movie.
And we had originally planned to see it on a Sunday, and I was like, well, like a couple days ago, I'm like, why don't we just go see it Friday night? And he was like, done. All right, let's go. Didn't need to convince him very hard on that one.
So we went on a Friday night. Like I said,
the second or third weekend
it was the third weekend that had been out. We just had some like schedule conflicts the first 2 weekends. So I was already very excited. I literally stayed away from all like the think pieces so that like they wouldn't give any spoilers away or anything.
Or give you any like bias on what to look out for, or how to
like a lens by which to look at the movie.
Yeah.
But I was really excited to go and see it. So much to where I'm like, I've thought about maybe going to see it a second time, just to like, because I've been to a couple of the talks since I've seen it, just to like rewatch it and look at it again. But I've ultimately decided not to do that. But I will buy the movie once it comes out.
We'll probably watch it again at that point too.
Yeah. So it's interesting to think about like the film, and kind of I know something that really caught your mind was the science behind it all.
Mm-hmm.
And how like it was very evident and very obvious in the film that they did a lot of research to go into it.
Yes, and one thing that always frustrates me, and this is just because I used to be in a lab that does blast and ballistics research, almost every single movie or TV show that depicts blast, so an IED or an explosion or a bomb, gets the physics wrong. And that's not because of any reason other than the physics are really, really complicated and they don't make perfect sense when you first hear about them. Like, it defies all the rest of the, like, experiential physics that we're used to dealing with. Like, it goes against what you expect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because it's such high energy and it's on such a fast time scale. Like, humans don't respond to the environment on that time scale, so we don't see... Anyway, so they get it wrong. And it's also because if you were to portray it accurately, it's a lot less exciting and a lot less like, oh my gosh, he was thrown like 10 feet into the wall because the bomb went off.
Mm.
No, as long as you're a couple feet away from the bomb, you probably won't move at all. So it's just a lot less exciting, but also it's not that commonly known or studied, so I don't really hold it against anyone for not getting it right, but it is something that irks me.
Well, it's funny,
time.
Like your friend Rachel.
Yes, she was also in the same lab, and she did her PhD thesis on explosions that happen underwater.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother issue compared to explosions that happen in the air. But anyway.
But I remember a while back, she had like a Facebook post where she was looking for like movie explosion scenes that like did not accurately portray like how like explosives work in the real world. And I remember just thinking back on that and being like, wow, like I never really thought. Well, of course, you've mentioned it to me like a couple of times, but like, how many times do movie scenes get it wrong?
Well, you wouldn't know that it's wrong unless you were in this line of research.
Yes.
You know, or unless you were in the military and your job was to detonate the bombs. You know what I mean? So it's like a very narrow portion of the population has any idea what to expect anyway. So it's no wonder, you know. So, but yes, I really appreciated coming from, so maybe we can talk about this a little later, but I felt that this movie was very much like a girl power movie. And I really appreciated, I think one thing, and I think this goes for people of color too, that seeing, like, you have to see it to be it. And so seeing an African American or someone or a woman like doing cutting edge science, doing these amazing things, it gives the younger generation a role model and just the concept of, well, I could do it. You know, often people put a cap for themselves and they don't realize that there is no need for that cap. And if they see someone else that they can relate to doing these things, they're more likely to, if they want to pursue it or think they can, they're more likely to do it. And so I really appreciated that it showed, like the sister, she was like this scientific and engineering mastermind developing all these amazing technologies, weapons, and safety mechanisms.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really cool that not only was she a woman of color, but she was also a woman doing all these things. And then when she talked about it, they had this, I remember this specific moment where they talked about the kinetic energy being stored by the suit, and then the suit could give back that energy. So if you shot at it or like sent an explosion to it, it could absorb the energy, which is what happens. You know, kinetic energy gets turned into potential energy, which you can then give back as kinetic energy. And so I just really appreciated that not only was it talked about and being a good role model for younger people, but they also said it correctly. So that none of these like falsehoods
about in the scientific community.
Because usually it's just done wrong, and it's like, oh. So anyway, that was a...
Well, I definitely think like you hit on a really good point of the movie and like empowerment and like representation. Because the film definitely had very strong female roles. You talk about the sister. You talk about T'Challa's mother, who's the queen. You talk about
the head of the army.
The head of the army.
I forget her name.
Yes, and then and
just the army warriors in general. They were like the top
Nakia.
notch.
Yeah. There were the two. There was the general who was the top of the army, and then there was also the spy who T'Challa loved.
Yes.
And they both were like the definition of strong women who fought for like the causes that they believed in
and stood up for the causes that they believed in.
And you see them like literally they were the strongest. Although the movie is about T'Challa and being the prince and becoming the king, I thought they were very central to like the movie. And in a way, you could have made a movie about them and their roles as powerful women.
I kind of felt like the movie was just as much, even though T'Challa was the main character, it definitely felt that the women were like, the movie was just as much about them. Or at least that the movie showcased how nothing could have gotten done or came to be the way it was without a massive effort from this collective group of women.
Yes.
Which I think is also kind of true in everyday life, too.
Agreed.
Just saying. So, yeah.
So I thought you made a really interesting point once we left the movie.
Yes, and I think I know what you're about to say.
What am I about to say?
Well, I don't know, but just viewers, so you know, we left the movie in such a high amount of excitement. We're talking about it. We said all these things, and then we're like, wait, we should hold this discussion for the podcast. So we've been itching to have this conversation for a long time. But I'll let you say what you want to say.
Well, what was I going to say? Go with it now.
Well, so one of the things that I made a mention in the car on the way home in the movie, I forget the, not T'Challa, but the
Killmonger.
So Killmonger came from a really disadvantaged background, I would say.
Yeah, came from Oakland.
Yeah, and he lost his. It didn't appear that he had a mother figure, and then he lost his father when he was young. Like, we don't exactly know, but he seemed to me like in the 10-year-old age range when his father was killed.
Yeah,
like something like that.
Yeah, 8 to 10.
Yeah, like young.
Yes.
And then he went into the military and was very successful there. And I think partly because, at least the movie portrayed it, like he had a lot of rage, and he was channeling that into what the military wanted him to do, and he became very successful.
Yes.
Anyhow, in Wakanda, they have all this technology and wealth and power, and they kind of shielded themselves off from the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we're going to look out for us. And then Killmonger was like, there's people all over the world that need our help. And if I take this technology and weapons from Wakanda, I can liberate millions of people. And the movie was set up in such a way that you kind of didn't want Killmonger to succeed. And you wanted T'Challa and Wakanda, like, he was like the usurper. And he was coming to change everything, and he was portrayed in such a way that it was like, he's an evil guy, he's a bad guy, and it's... So I was watching the movie being like, I don't want Killmonger to succeed, but then as I left the movie and I was thinking about it, I'm like, that's awful, I really feel like there are a lot of people that need liberation, and there are a lot of places where they're so disadvantaged, and we should help them, and we need to help them, and so it was just really interesting. Is that what you thought I was going to say?
That's not exactly what I was thinking about, but we were eventually going to get there, so we can get there now.
So yeah, it was just a really conflicting emotion for me to actively be hoping against what I truly actually hope for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the movie did come around towards the end where they tried to show that there was some kind of resolution. Like, the person that T'Challa was in love with, she wanted to help other people, and she had been pushing for Wakanda to share its wealth to help those in need as well. And at the end, they kind of came to a quote-unquote resolution. We can talk about that later. But at least the movie tried to make reparations, I think, in terms of marrying the conflict of, like, Wakanda with all this power stays and protects Wakanda only versus its responsibility to help other people.
Yes. And that is, I would say, the central theme of the movie is Wakanda and T'Challa, the king of Wakanda, once his father passed away, is what is Wakanda's responsibility to helping the rest of the world and empowering other African Americans and other people who have been colonized by the United States. And so Killmonger...
Did you think it was specifically by the United States?
Yeah, I thought so. Like, who else? Like, the United States has been...
I don't know, a lot of places.
Like, it's been, like, I would say, like... The United States has been the biggest benefactor from colonization, I would say.
Oh, I would disagree with that entirely.
What? Who?
Because colonization has been happening well before the U.S. was even a country, for hundreds of years. So I definitely think I think you're right in that, like, colonization benefited Europe, and then America sprung from Europe. So America had its own colonization that it benefited from, and it benefited from the colonization that happened previously. So I think, technically, I would agree with you. But the way I was thinking about it originally is that, like, it wasn't America benefiting from the, like, 600 years of colonization that happened before America even came to be. But now that I think about it a little bit more, the descendants of those people that already had a lot of power and wealth were what colonized America, and then they continued colonizing other places. I kind of agree now.
Yeah, I definitely
talk about it more.
Yeah, I definitely thought that. Or just from it felt like America, and specifically in this film, like, of course Europe benefited from colonization, but I think America through, like, the slave trade,
Well, that's what I'm talking about. The slave trade existed well before America existed.
But I would argue that like
maybe America benefited the most at the
yes.
time that it was involved, but like it had been happening in all over Europe, especially like Holland, for hundreds of years before it happened in America.
But I wouldn't say that, like, I don't know the history of it as much, but I would say that slavery in America was like, would you say Holland and like was on the same level of slavery here in America?
I don't know the history as much, but that's why I think that it's not like who participated in the slave trade longest. Like, I definitely think that if you look in terms of numbers, you would probably find that the U.S. had, I mean, again, I don't know the history, but I would imagine had the most profit from the slave trade it was involved with. Whether they had more slaves or less, or was involved for more or less time, we can look back on the history books, but I'm sure the history books would also educate us on some semblance of an idea of the profit made. But I definitely have the impression from my life and experiences that the profits made by the U.S. off of slavery are kind of what propelled it to be the world power that it is today.
Yes.
And because it's the world power that it is today and no one else is quite there yet, China's coming in hot, but not based on slavery, but they're really threatening for the world power, I guess is what I'm saying. Because we're still at number one, you could make the argument that no one else benefited in the same way that America did.
Sure.
Is that what you were thinking? Yeah. I guess when you said in the movie, like, oh, America, I had kind of thought it to be any country across the whole world that has oppressors and oppressees. I didn't really see it as America and everyone else.
Yeah, I definitely think that Killmonger wanted to liberate all people oppressed across the entire globe. But like, it was very clear to me, at least that's how I felt, that like it was his number one goal, and maybe it's just because of his proximity to like the United States and like he grew up there, like he was a part of the U.S. like government. He was a part of the armed forces, which gave him, and he saw like he was a part of the machine that like went into other countries and destroyed. Yeah. And he was a part of the system that oppressed other people. That he was like, America is the number one
enemy. Number one.
Yeah, enemy number one, and the biggest enemy we have the power to take down, and we need to go after them. So I would say that like there was definitely this tension between Killmonger and T'Challa. And for me, like, first of all, there are no, I went to one of the talks, like, there in the story, there are no, I would say, villains or heroes.
Really?
Yeah, and it may, like, going to these talks, like, there are no, like, they're all imperfect characters.
Yes, I would definitely agree that they're all imperfect characters, but I very much got the impression that Killmonger was the stereotypical villain and T'Challa was the stereotypical human, or hero, even though they're all human and they're all have imperfections and they all have like strengths and weaknesses. Like, I do think I saw parts of Killmonger that were very humanizing.
Yeah,
and I also saw parts of T'Challa that were very like, you were disappointed in him, and like you could tell he had flaws.
Yes, I like. So in saying that there are no there are no perfect characters, everyone was imperfect. Like I very much I see everything that Killmonger was trying to do. Like, he was trying to like help the oppressed. He was trying to liberate and create a society that like raised everyone up to an equal level.
Or an equal opportunity level.
An equal opportunity level. And he wanted to like arm those that had been in so many disadvantaged communities been taken advantage of because they didn't have the resources.
Right. Which is why it was such a conflict for me to be like rooting against him as the villain. Because I'm like, everything that he actually stands for and actually wants, I think is a great thing.
Yes.
You know, and so that's why it was like really tough for me. And I was like, did the writers set it up this way? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, and like, so T'Challa, who is the king, you see that he is very much like he wants to protect his people. He wants to protect Wakanda because they have seen how like Western society and colonizers, how they take advantage and they destroy like communities. And I think that in looking at how I can understand why T'Challa wants to be so protective of his people.
Right. I think that anyone would want to be protective of their people. But there's the additional factor that Wakanda has an extreme amount of technology and intelligence that would be very valuable. Like, that could be used in the wrong ways very easily.
Yes.
Like, I think that if it was just some Joe Schmo, like, this is our little, like, suburb, they would still want to protect themselves, but they have the additional factor of, like, we've worked really hard to develop the technology that we have, and it comes with great responsibility, and we don't want that to fall into the wrong hands.
Yes, and I think some of that, like, a prism by which that is seen is that, like, part of, I'm using America as the colonizer here as a frame of construct, but, like, America as, like, a culture, like, we are always, in different times in our, like, history, we take advantage of, like, we take advantage of those who, like, have power. We like to say we're friendly to work with, but I would say that we very much, we want to be number one.
When you say friendly to work with, do you mean in terms of, like
we
trade treaties and stuff, or do you mean like?
Well, I think just in overall like politics, like just overall politics, overall American culture, we're always trying to be like bigger. We're always trying to be like better.
Competitive, yes.
We have a very competitive nature, and when that competitive like nature starts to interact with others, not so much interact with others, but when that competitive nature it comes out in like forms of capitalism, and we will do anything to be like number one. Like, we'll do anything to make money. We will do anything to be number one. And when you look at that, and Prince T'Challa wanted to be like, we understand that this is their way of thinking. This is like how colonizers, like, they don't care about everyone else. They just care about being number one and doing whatever it is to stay at number one. And I think Killmonger kind of brings that thought process into Wakanda, and that, like, hey, like, it's important to be number one. And the way you become number one is, like, you have the power to take over those who are, like, you have to have power to be number one. And that power is vibranium, being able to use technology, and being able to, like...
Yeah, I definitely felt that Killmonger wanted... Because Wakanda was already number one. The rest of the world just didn't know it.
Yeah.
And so that's the issue. Wakanda was fine being number one and nobody knowing it. But Killmonger wanted the recognition from everyone else that Wakanda was number one.
I don't know if he wanted... I
he wanted,
I wouldn't say that he wanted
power.
that.
Like, you don't have power over someone if no one knows you have the power. Right? If you're the smartest person ever, but you don't say anything or do any actions to show that you're smart, no one knows you're the smartest person.
Yes.
Just like Wakanda, they have all this technology and all this wealth, but they were hidden from the rest of the world, so no one knew how much technology or wealth they had.
Yes.
And, like, they were completely fine with that, and it was Killmonger that wanted to
liberate. Yes.
But in doing so, I think a side goal of his was, like, we can do this liberation because we're number one. And in the act of liberating all these people, then we're showing all these other oppressors that we're number one. Mm-hmm. Like, I think he wanted the power to liberate. Like, he wanted the liberation, but he also wanted the power that comes with being able to liberate.
Yes.
Whereas I think some people could argue, like, they just want the liberation. Like, they don't need to have the power. Like, they just want everyone to have equal power and equal opportunity.
Yeah, and part of what makes, like, Killmonger such a, like, likable and, like, dislikable character is that, like, you want the liberation, but sometimes you have to, like, fight in order to be liberated.
Right.
And I think Killmonger was willing to do whatever it took to be liberated.
Yes.
While, like, Prince T'Challa, he definitely was much more, we need to do this politically correct.
Well, and I don't think he really was sold on the idea that it was his responsibility or his problem at all.
Yeah.
Until towards the end of the movie.
True. I don't necessarily think it was, like, their responsibility.
So that's an interesting concept. Expand more on that concept.
Well, I just think that, like, Wakanda as a nation has grown its resources, and just like America, we have an abundance of resources, but we try and lend a hand every now and then and, like, help countries, but I wouldn't say that we are bending over backwards to help other countries. And I don't necessarily know if that's, like, our responsibility or Wakanda's responsibility. I think that as it's important to take care of those in your own borders first.
Mm-hmm. I guess I was curious, you said that less of a international relations comment, but more of a, like, current U.S. politics. Like, I think that a lot of people feel very strongly that we have a responsibility to take care of everyone, and I think that other people feel very strongly, I've worked for my wealth and I don't have a responsibility to take care of anyone else. And so I just find that very interesting for you to say, I don't necessarily think they have a responsibility.
Well, I would say, like...
Because in my opinion, like, Wakanda has worked very hard to build its wealth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it stole its wealth from someone else, or it, I guess that's like... It earned its wealth.
Yeah, it earned it, and...
But I feel like that could be extrapolated to certain members of the American society, like, that have earned their wealth. Do they have no responsibility to take care of people that are not in their same position, or that, like, I think it's a little bit different because in America, the people, I would say, that have earned their wealth, or a lot of it has come from the system. They were advantaged in the system.
Yes.
Right? And so it's very different if everyone's on an even playing field, everyone has equal opportunities. Some people work really hard and make money, other people don't. Then it's kind of like, well, you had every opportunity and you didn't, like, you chose not to make the most of it, so I have no responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not how it is. It's like, there weren't equal opportunities, and there weren't equal... Some people benefited, and sometimes that was directly because of the detriment to somebody else.
Mm.
And so I think in that case, I personally do think that there's a responsibility. But it's really hard to... I think it's easy to make that claim as, like, an overall, but it's really hard on a one-to-one or, like, an individual basis.
Yes, and I completely agree with that. And, like, that in our system, I think we, like, in American culture and the American system, there are inherent disadvantages that people have.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hope that people in those more, like, people that have the advantages and people that have the systems in place to be successful, I would hope that they would, like, help those who are less, like, who are more marginalized and don't have the resources that they do.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So did we discuss what you, when I was like, I think I know what you're going to say.
No, so, like...
Okay. I was going to say, I don't know.
Well, the thing that, like, when we came out of the movie, you were like, oh, like, they had... before we go into that, so would you say you were Team Killmonger or Team T'Challa?
Team T'Challa. That's why it was such a conflict, because I wanted to be Team Killmonger for everything he stood for, but I felt that he was portrayed as the villain, and I was like, Team T'Challa. Okay,
I will say, like, everything in me, like, says Team T'Challa or Team Killmonger. Like, I agree everything that he, like, I understood where he was coming from. I understood, like, why he, like, did the things that he did, and, like, I am all for everything that he stood for. I'm just not there with the way that he went about it. Like,
and I think that's why I was not Team Killmonger. It's because it wasn't clear to me that he would be a responsible ruler and he would liberate and then be done with it. Like, it wasn't clear to me that
but
he
like,
wasn't
if
also
you think about
power-hungry.
this, like, if
like
the way that he was going about liberating like the oppressed, you can't just be, oh, like, we're gonna liberate everyone and just be like, oh, it's free reign, like, everyone do whatever they want. Like, if you go about liberation in the way that Killmonger wanted to, like, eventually somebody has to be like the top dog.
Right.
Because there's like all this war. Like, when there's war, like, somebody comes out on top, and that is kind of like the ruler.
Yes, I understand. So that's what it wasn't. But that's the thing. I don't think that anyone should be oppressed, but I don't think that liberating the oppressed means flipping the scales. Like, I don't think it's that the oppressed should now become the oppressors, and the oppressors should become the oppressed.
Okay.
I think the oppressed should be liberated, and then everyone has an equal opportunity. And so that's what it wasn't clear to me with Killmonger. I didn't think that he could...
Yeah, but in order for that to happen, like, the oppressors have to, like, give back their power, like,
Yes.
willingly.
Yes.
And
that's very difficult to make that happen without violence, I think.
Yes.
And I
think that's my point. Like, the oppressors, they're not going to be like, oh, like, I don't like all these opportunities. I don't like being, like, I don't like having extra resources. So I'm going to give them some back and take away from, like, my opportunities. And, like, so that's to be
where
taken.
I think that in today's day and age, and maybe this is my rosy perspective and I am so naive and know nothing, but I think that we're getting to the place where we can start to give a base level of opportunity that is accessible to everyone without detracting from the opportunities of others. Like, I really think that there's a time...
But, like, if you have a base level of opportunity, there's still people that have... Like,
more, yes.
More. And those people that have more are going to have a greater opportunity of success. And so, like, if you want to create, like, an equal opportunity for success, like, those people that have more opportunities have to be willing to, like, give those up to, like, so that everyone is on equal ground. And I don't think that's going to come without being...
So you don't think that... I agree with you that if there needs to be some opportunities taken from a group and given to another, that won't come without force.
Yes.
I just am not sold on the concept that, like, you have to take some from others to give equal opportunities to everyone. But I guess I do see your point, though, that, like, if there's some base level, there's still going to be people that have more. Yeah. Like, even if we raise everyone up to a certain base level, now that's just the new lowest opportunity.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I kind of think I understand what you're saying a little bit more.
But,
So what was the thing, or did you want to talk
about
I was
just, the final point I was going to make is that you made the point that, like, there are a lot of, like, male characters, like, showing, like, emotions.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I did make that point.
As we were coming out of the film.
I really like that.
Yeah, so it was just the whole, like, the father, T'Challa, and his father, the king. The king passed away very early in the film. But through some rituals, he actually got to see his father and, like, talk with the elders.
It was very Lion King to me.
Yeah. But, like, you kind of see, like, that fatherhood and sharing down of wisdom. But you also see with Killmonger and his father, like, they share a moment, and where Killmonger's father is like, I wish that like I could have been there for you and kind of helped you see how beautiful Wakanda was, because Killmonger's father actually talked to him about Wakanda when he was young, and he wanted to take him back to like show him Wakanda and help him get to kind of know his, for lack of better words, his roots. Mm-hmm. But because of the situation in America and some of the back dealings, he never got that chance. And T'Challa's father, the king, actually killed Killmonger's father.
Because he believed that Killmonger's father had been a traitor to Wakanda.
Yes.
So, yeah, I thought it was interesting. Like, you mentioned a lot of the father-son dynamics, but I felt throughout the whole movie a lot of the main male figures were vulnerable and open in their emotions in a lot of ways. Like, I think there was many instances where you saw either T'Challa showing, like, love and being vulnerable in mm-hmm. love to his lady love. I always forget her name.
It's not Nicoya.
As well as to, like, showing familial love to his mom and his sister. You saw Killmonger showing familial love to his father and, like, openly grieving, crying. Like, T'Challa was crying in many scenes in the movie. You saw the, he was, like, so Wakanda is made up of a bunch of tribes, I would say, and yes. He was, like, the tribe leader of a different tribe that he was in love with, like, one of the main head warriors.
Yes,
But anyway, he was open in his love and, like, expression of his love, which I feel like you often don't see a lot of. Like, men are supposed to be men, and, like, they don't have feelings, and, like, oh, that's just some girl, you know, like, and so that they were very open about loving these women, yes. their family and not, and then also open about loving their fathers and having, like, family being a really important thing to them, and also being open about crying. Like, there was men crying all over the place in this movie, which is great because I think that's like a true... It's important for representation, and I also think that's an accurate portrayal of a human being. Yeah. And I also felt that, I had one other thing to say. I also felt that they did a pretty good job illustrating the fear. Like, I think when T'Challa went for the fight for mm-hmm. who's going to be the king, and when he was challenged, I think both. I think the first one he was a little less afraid than the second one. But I think that they did a good job portraying that he was feeling fear and being vulnerable in his fear, and sure, he had some confidence, but he also had a lot of pressure. You know, yes. His mom and sister are, like, watching and, like, cheering him on, but it's also like you got the whole nation on your back, like, don't mess up. Yeah, and so I think it did a good job, and maybe that was just me reading into the scene, but I felt a lot of pressure and fear that I imagined T'Challa was feeling in those instances. And I also felt there were some scenes with Killmonger where you could feel like he felt like he had a world of pressure that he was trying to, you know, do for the greater good. Mm-hmm. And so I think it was just really great to see all these men in positions of power having big feelings. Yes. And demonstrating them.
Well, that was our episode. Black Panther, if you haven't gone and seen it, go and see it. I was literally going to say the same thing. It is a really good movie. One that Ron Coogler, the director, he did a great job. And there's so many different aspects and ways that you can look at the movie and kind of think about it and discuss it.
And if you don't want to do any of that and just want to be lazy, it's a very entertaining movie. Yes. Like, it's a great story and it's entertaining.
I mean, it's done over 1 billion worldwide, so we're not telling you anything you don't know. People are going to watch it for a reason because it's a good movie.
It's a good movie, yeah. So, anyway, thank you so much, and that is what we are doing.
Deuces.